Hey, and welcome to Reporting In. I'm your host, Malcolm Fleschner. This is the TYT show that members get to see first before anybody else, and then we publish it for the general public, the masses. But you members, you get to see it first because we appreciate your support, and it's one of the benefits of membership. And you're going to be excited that you tuned in today because, or clicked on, I don't know, it's not really tuning in. I'm talking to Ryan Grim, who you probably already know. He's been on the show before. He's the DC bureau chief for The Intercept, and he's also a TYT contributor. He was formerly the DC bureau chief for Huffington Post, where he was part of a team that won a Pulitzer Prize. Not a big deal, whatever, you know. I'm sure a lot of people win Pulitzer Prizes. And he's also the author of the book, This Is Your Country on Drugs, The Secret History of Getting High in America, which on title alone I want to read. I didn't know you had written that book until I did a little, got your bio up. And so you don't even have to describe it to me. I want to read it. But so Ryan he's coming, we're recording this on Wednesday and in the afternoon, and we're in the midst of this whole Kavanaugh craziness circus. How are you holding up, Ryan?
Somehow Kavanaugh is still holding up. Like you said, we're late into Wednesday. We're now, staring down the barrel of the 10 a.m. Thursday morning hearing, and they have not yet said that we're pulling the plug on this guy's nomination. And on Twitter, at least, which is where Senate Republicans go to do their battle when they're not on Fox News, they're standing by their man. Lindsey Graham is out saying, what on earth is this girl doing going to parties where people are getting gang raped? I can't believe anybody would do such a thing. Which seems to be the line that they're going with. Other Republicans are attacking Dianne Feinstein for foisting this on them at the last minute, saying that they're assassinating the character of Brett Kavanaugh. Yet you have the Judicial Crisis Network, which is the group that's out with ads saying that Christine Blasey Ford is part of a vast conspiracy to take Brett Kavanaugh down. You have them out not quite standing behind Kavanaugh. The first kind of crack in the dam was the Judicial Crisis Network's general counsel saying, well, maybe we should slow down and look into these allegations of gang rape that have come out.
Right. So we're 24 hours, less than 24 hours away from what was supposed to be the big event that was all building up to, where testimony from both Kavanaugh and his accuser in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, where the Republicans were going to hide their tail between their legs and run and hide behind a woman prosecutor to ask Christine Blasey Ford questions, but the full committee was going to ask Kavanaugh questions. What was the plan exactly? Assuming it happened, what were they planning on doing?
Well, first, Blasey Ford is going to be questioned by Democrats. We'll get 5 minutes each, and then also Republicans, because it's an all-male panel of Republicans on the Judiciary Committee. They knew that would look terrible, so they went and hired a woman from Arizona who works in the sex crimes unit in Maricopa County to do their questioning for them, so that when it goes on cable TV, at least it's not a bunch of old men questioning the character and integrity of a sexual assault survivor. It's a woman questioning the character and integrity of a sexual assault survivor. And not coincidentally, I'm sure, she's from Arizona, where Jeff Flake has become a wobbly vote. So while all of the focus was on Murkowski and Collins, now Jeff Flake has also, and Bob Corker have also become iffy. And then Kavanaugh is scheduled to go after her on Thursday morning.
But the prosecutor from Arizona would not be asking him questions.
That's an interesting question, and by the time this is up, we'll know whether or not it happened, whether or not. So it's right. So do the men feel comfortable defending Kavanaugh, or do they want to leave that to the female prosecutor as well?
And of course, the question that why is a prosecutor asking questions of a woman who is not accused of any sort of crime? But then they wouldn't have the prosecutor for the guy who is.
They don't have a whole lot of women to choose from. Although, if you notice when they talk about pulling Kavanaugh and replacing it, everybody goes to Amy Barrett. Amy Barrett is hugely problematic because she's pretty much on the record against Roe v. Wade, which makes it almost impossible for Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski to support her. So then Republicans, after that, then they go back to other men. Like, seriously, like you have one woman that you could put up, and once she doesn't pass muster from either Trump, who apparently doesn't like her, or Collins and Murkowski, who don't like that she's so explicit about overturning Roe v. Wade, they don't have a bench of one other woman. Can't find anybody.
That's kind of funny because like the Republicans, their reputation is for being much better planners. I mean, like they caught the Democrats by surprise with the 2010 elections and taking all the governorships in the state houses, and the Democrats were like, ooh, I don't know what's going on. But they didn't anticipate this, I guess, and who on earth could have? But they seem at a loss. They seem like they really are throwing whatever they can at this problem, and like any excuse, the Zillow excuse, it wasn't in my calendar excuse, the I was a virgin until I was in my mid-30s excuse, or whatever. I mean, like there's nobody. If they have a back room and somebody comes up with one of these ideas, there should be somebody saying, okay, not that one, because that's ridiculous. Right. But they don't seem to, or maybe who knows what are the preposterous ones that didn't get out. When shudders to think.
Now they're back to complaining about the process of
right.
the way this came out. And whenever politicians are complaining about the process, they've lost. And also, Trump now believes that things have gotten out of hand and he needs to step in and he needs to take charge, which means he's going to start unleashing completely crazy charges at these women.
Yeah,
that's the Trump move. And so, Republicans know that, once Trump is taking over the messaging on this, they've certainly lost. Because when Trump attacked Christine Blasey Ford recently for not filing a police report, McConnell called him and said, "Bud, not helpful. We've got this. We're going to move the guy through. Just dial that back for us." And so Trump, not characteristically, stepped back and said, "Okay, Mitch says he's got this. I'm gonna go ahead and step back and put the phone away for now." Now he feels like that was probably a mistake on his part. He should have followed his gut, which is to attack every woman that he can find. And so now he feels unleashed.
Right, and then we've got the bombshell report from this morning is the third accuser whose the allegations are. I'm not saying more serious, but more lurid than what's come before, and it's so that's what's calling into question whether the hearing is going to happen tomorrow at all, or I don't know if maybe hearing isn't the right term. But so, what's your assessment? We're either this is going to happen or it's not, and do you have any sense of like if you're a betting man, what would you say is going to happen?
I mean, there are a couple ways to think about it. And one is this, that that this hearing, if it happens, is going to be a bloodbath for Republicans. It's going to be a highly credible woman telling a painful story about the man that all of these Republicans are standing behind to try to foist onto the Supreme Court. So if it's going to be a public opinion bloodbath. So you go through that pain if you're Republicans, if you think that on the other end of it, you're going to get your boy on the Supreme Court. I don't see the logic in going through all of that pain if you still think you're not going to get the guy onto the Supreme Court. And with the new allegations that have been made, which are from a deeply credible source, this one, the new woman, it seems very unlikely that they're going to be able to get him through. So then why go through the pain, the public pain of that hearing? And it may have something to do with a line in the sand that Republicans are drawing. And they feel like they have the support of 30+% of the country in this, that they are going to make a stand for a way of life. They're going to stand up to this out of control, runaway Me Too movement. They're going to put women in their place by showing that they're not going to be pushed around anymore. by these accusations that are being leveled at them. And that is a principle in its own right, just kind of stand up for the patriarchy and defend it to the last man, and to show that they're willing to put up that fight. Now, whether or not I can't imagine that they are going to go through with this hearing. On the other hand, I am constantly forced to revise what I'm able to imagine Republicans doing. So
Right.
By the time this goes up, we'll know. But to me, it strikes me as a kind of a coin toss. But really hard for me to see them deciding that it's worth going through this hearing, given what we've learned from this new allegation.
And do we have a sense that if they push this through, regardless of what happens on Thursday, and they hold the schedule is to hold the Senate Judiciary vote on Friday morning, and then the full Senate would vote on Monday, is our sense right now that Democrats are in lockstep that all 49 would vote against the nomination on Monday?
Not yet. That's my sense, but not yet. So, I feel like Heidi Heitkamp has signaled that she would be a no vote at this point. That leaves people like Manchin and Donnelly and Bill Nelson. I feel like at this point they have enough cover, given the severity of and the breadth and the depth of the allegations, to vote no.
And they're not even really voting no on the nomination per se. They're voting no on the fact that it's being, there's no investigation. We're ramming this through. We're not going to take our time. And the argument they're making is there's no rush for this. It's not like, but of course there is on the Republican side. But that's all politics. So everybody can pretend it's not about politics. Right. And so ultimately, really, this. We talk about 30% of the public or support in the Republican base, and how are they going to respond? And are Republican women going to abandon the GOP in droves in the midterms, and all this sort of speculation? But this, in terms of the vote itself, it's just Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Jeff Flake, essentially, that we're the three people, Corker maybe, whom we're debating. And as soon as it's up to them and what they decide to do. And obviously, they have not put the kibosh on this nomination yet, or Mitch McConnell would have pulled it, presumably, right?
Right. And, to get a gauge of where this is at, it was only today that Democrats really began calling for Kavanaugh to be withdrawn. The kind of the public conversation is kind of ahead of where the Senate was. Before today, you had Hirono, Merkley, Gillibrand, and Markey calling for him to be withdrawn. It took the kind of the gang rape allegation for Schumer and a lot of other senators then to start piling on and say, you know what, pull this nominee. This is ridiculous.
Not the greatest metaphor. Piling on, gang rape allegation. We'll move on. Well, won't dwell on that. But yes, your point is well taken. That even the Democrats were not really united in saying we should pull the nomination. They're just calling for an investigation. But now they're saying this nomination needs to be pulled and we need to start over again.
Right. Only just got there.
Yeah. And so am I right that if Susan Collins, I don't know how these things work in the back rooms, but if Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski agree, look, we can't vote for this guy, and they say to McConnell, we're not going to vote for this guy, then is it possible he brings up the vote anyway, just because to force their hand maybe, or to rile up the Republican base? Is there some reason, even if he doesn't have the votes, that he might push it anyway?
I think there was before today, and he signaled that at his press conference on Tuesday. He said, we're going to be voting up or down on this nominee. And that was a subtle change in language. And McConnell is extremely precise and careful about his language. That was the first time he had included down in his list of possibilities. But that was a signal to people like Collins, Murkowski, Flake, and a lot of other Senate Republicans who might have been getting squishy about this nomination based on whatever they might have in their own closets that they don't want to come out. That look, you're gonna be put on the line here. There's less upside for McConnell in putting him on the line, given the new allegation from a woman with multiple security clearances who says she has multiple witnesses, is works for the government now, and is putting everything on the line. If you have security clearances and you perjure yourself, you lose your security clearances. You never work in that field again. And for somebody like her, that's effectively the end of her career.
But there's also the Trump angle, which is because it's his nomination. All McConnell could really do is not hold a vote. It's up to Trump to pull the nomination or Kavanaugh himself to withdraw, right?
Sure. If Trump refuses to pull it, then maybe McConnell, who warned Trump from day one that Kavanaugh would be difficult to get confirmed, puts him on the floor just so he gets voted down to tell Trump, look, I told you Kavanaugh will be hard to get through. I told you we didn't have the votes. Now he's been voted down. Nice work.
I'm sure Trump would be like, you were right. I apologize. He's a big fan of apologies. Okay, so we this is all sort of speculation. We'll know in a few days what's at least going to happen in the immediate term and whether the nomination is going to go forward or the replacement, so on and so forth. But stepping back, what do you think about the Kavanaughs and Republicans in general? They're going all in on his defense as like this choir boy who never committed any of, he was just a straight shooter and studious and liked my friends and I hung out, which is obviously has become apparent that was a fabrication, and no one's like that anyway, and they're still holding to that. Was that a mistake on their part? Should they have, at the beginning, have said, look, nobody's perfect. We all have, things that we regret in our past, but, these allegations, I'm not saying these allegations are accurate, but, we have the misspent youth that we make up for, and we become adults and we make mistakes when we're kids, and that doesn't mean that we should never move on with our lives. Like, was that, so far, he's still the nominee, so I guess it's been working to an extent. But do you feel like that was a good choice on their part, or should they have taken a different tack?
I think objectively it didn't work. Because here we are in this nadir for them. Maybe like McConnell said, they still plow forward, but I don't see it happening. But I think you're right. I think that tactically speaking, that would have been a smarter approach, but that would have required some deference to the women making the accusations. It would have required some level of apology for the elite culture that produced Brett Kavanaugh, and the reflexive approach here is to give no ground, no quarter. Is to say, look, we're all in this together. This is our secret society, and we're not apologizing for anything.
Yeah, we're elites, and this is how we behave. And if you start, it seems like there's a bigger picture here about the message we're sending to young people today, that whether this behavior is tolerable or not, and what we're essentially, or the Republicans essentially are saying, is this behavior is excusable. You shouldn't have to pay any price for behaving this way. And even though the message that the larger culture is telling kids and in schools are being told no bullying, and yet there's bullying going on at the highest level, sexual harassment shouldn't be tolerated. And then the Republicans are saying, well, boys will be boys, boys will be rapists, whatever, So I guess there is but that is a legitimate larger question about how much of high school or college behavior should be, excused and you allowed for those opportunities to make mistakes in your youth. Obama, he snorted cocaine in his youth, and Mitt Romney was alleged he was a bully in high school. I know, and Hillary Clinton, she voted for Barry Goldwater. These things are horrible. They're, we have to admit to them. But no, I don't really. But I think, but there does seem like an element of, we shouldn't be judging people for what they did in high school on the same standard as if they did them yesterday. And I'm not saying we are doing that, but there's a blurry line there.
Right, and I think that's why, if he had taken that approach, it might have worked. But there can't be redemption and forgiveness without, admitting the wrongdoing and talking about how you changed and transformed. If you look into Brett Kavanaugh's eyes, you don't see somebody who has, become a new man. You're not gonna hear him talk about, how he got over his problem drinking years. You're not going to hear him talk about, how he has reflected on the way that he treated women as a young man and has changed his approach to that. What he says instead is that I have always treated women with dignity and respect. Yes, I may have had a few too many beers with my friends on weekends in between my being captain of the basketball team and my church activities and my scholarship and my studies.
Rescuing orphans and saving puppies from drowning and all the other extracurriculars he was involved in.
We know that Obama used cocaine because he told us about it in his book. And actually his friends came out and said, we don't remember that. It was one of the first cases of a presidential aspirant kind of inflating his cocaine use.
Yeah, all of his friends are like, shut up, man.
But I think he was looking for a bit of a redemption story when he might not even have needed one. He was always a pretty good kid.
And so this is also what Clinton did when he was running originally in '92 about all the allegations, Jennifer Flowers and the like, and sitting there with Hillary and sort of taking his lumps and saying, that he and using his Christianity to say that the redemption story and to benefit from that or play on that. But you're right. You're not getting Kavanaugh is not a font of contrition by any stretch.
He's never done anything wrong. And his friends, hilariously, in their statements, always have some line that says, "This doesn't sound like the Brett Kavanaugh we know." Like, what are you talking about? Like, his own roommate says he is an angry drunk. Read the blurbs in his yearbook. He's publicly slut shaming somebody in his own yearbook.
That's pretty awful.
Yeah, this whole not the Brett we know. Well, it calls into question everything that his friends say about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly lying. He's not just about his high school hijinks, but he's lied about a variety of other things. And this is sort of all this, the prurience of the sex accusations, the harassment and the rape and all that sort of thing that has sort of obscured all the other things that he was misrepresenting about previously. And now, of course, we're hyper focused on this. We're almost out of time, but there was one, I guess, other aspect of this I wanted to ask you about, which is that the GOP a lot, and Donald Trump certainly with the witch hunt talk. They're pushing a line that this is a vast conspiracy that the liberals and left wing and George Soros or whoever has cooked up. And they made it all up just to slander this man and to keep him off because they'll stop at nothing. And I wonder how much of that is projection on their part, because that is certainly absolutely what they would do if they had the wherewithal and could. They would be glad to put together phony accusations against somebody and create substantiation for it and a paper trail to make it seem authentic, because this is a blood sport for them and it's no holds barred. Democrats that's not the case for them. So am I giving them too much or too little, I don't know, credit for suggesting that they just think that the Democrats are doing what they themselves would be doing if the roles were reversed? I
think you're right. I think it's 100% projection, and it shows the way that they approach politics and the way they would have approached something like this. And they don't step back and think, well, this would be the first conspiracy that was ever hatched between the Democratic Party and the Intercept and Young Turks. Not typically news organizations that work collaboratively or collectively with the party. It would have come out through New York Times, maybe. That's where a leak goes. If you want it to have maximum damage. Dianne Feinstein is not typically leaking things to the Intercept.
Yeah. I just had one more question before we go, which is sort of more of a big picture question that takes into account the entirety of the Trump administration, which I look at people like Paul Manafort and what's his name, Cohen, his lawyer, Michael Cohen, and now Brett Kavanaugh. And I assume that Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen, when Donald Trump was elected, thought this was great. This was good for them, right? This is the gravy train, and they're just going to keep rolling on it. When in fact they have been exposed, their wrongdoing, their criminal activity has put them in serious jeopardy of going to jail. Well, Paul Manafort is going to go to jail, and and now Brett Kavanaugh, it's not impossible that the result of this could be him being disbarred or legal action being taken against him. And I wonder if there is any sense in the larger Republican circles that, not only like I wouldn't want to replace Rod Rosenstein if he gets fired or whatever, I wouldn't want to work in that administration because it's, but like that association with the Trump administration and the larger Republican sphere, if you have wrongdoing in your past, you need to stay the hell away from them. It's the opposite of what would have been in the past. Would have been you be protected. No, you're not protected anymore, and he tends to attract the worst kind of people. But should they be scared? Like, should they think of Trump as radioactive now and fear for their lives if they want to have anything to do with him or propose that they would have anything to do with him?
I think I think that's becoming an element of the calculation that people are making as they think about this. If you're Trump, you probably are. Maybe you're. Now, who knows how Trump's mind works? But he's not exactly somebody with a squeaky clean past either. And if this tide keeps rising, it may get to him and his family eventually as well. But I do think if you look at the men and the Democrats too in the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they start thinking about what Kavanaugh did, they might not have done all of that when they were in high school and college or in their years just after college, but there are going to be a non-trivial number of them that did that much, slightly less than it, or slightly worse than it. They know they did it. They know those women are still around. And their career goes on only by the grace of the silence of those women, and now they're recognizing that that silence is not a given. So I think it is something that is in the back of a lot of minds.
Well, it is insanity. I agree with you that this is craziness and nobody can predict what's going to happen. I gave up trying to make predictions back when I said that Scott Walker was going to be the Republican nominee in 2016. For the most part, I can't help myself to a degree, but it's a shocking times we're living in, and I appreciate your coming on and trying to make some sense of them to the best extent possible and sharing with me your insights. And I guess so. Keep following Ryan Grim on Twitter and The Intercept and TYT Investigates to find out what's going on with this story and many others that are critical, although this is, of course, sucking. He might fire the assistant attorney general, and that's not even, sorry, we can't, that's, A20, that's on A20 in the New York Times. It's unbelievable. Anyway, okay, so thanks, Ryan, so much for, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk to your daughter last time she joined us. Maybe next time she can come on and provide her insights. She also has a Twitter page, which she has some political insights as well, so it runs in the family, clearly. So thanks to Ryan Grim. Check him out on Twitter and follow him on The Intercept and his work at The Intercept. For you at home, thanks so much for watching, reporting in. Members make this show happen. You get to see it first, and we appreciate your sponsorship. And I hope you'll watch next time because it's always a good time on reporting in. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.